And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be looking at CBS Sports' list of all the top 10 NBA players in the NBA right now, like currently. And, CBS, they just recently released this list. I believe they did this, I want to say maybe around yesterday. Maybe like a little bit later. Yesterday at around 4:20. Ironic, I know. It was they made this list. So I'm just gonna go ahead and list off all of the players in order. You guys are gonna see the players on your screen right now. Number one, easily is going to be him. Like, there's no argument for that. I completely agree with Jokic being number one. There's no reason why he shouldn't be number one. He recently just won the MVP, one of the best offensive players that the NBA has seen, arguably the best player in the year of 2020 moving forward. Like, he is probably, like, if there's anyone that's the face of the NBA right now, it's Jokic. He's the best player in the NBA, the best offensive talent. He almost averages a triple-double practically every single year. He's incredibly efficient at scoring, easily the reason why Denver is such a powerhouse of a team and such a dominant team as it is. No questions about him being number one. If you have a problem with him being number one, then you're just wrong. You're wrong. Plain and simple. And next player on CBS's list is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Again, an easy pick. Easily the second best player in the NBA. And I literally said this yesterday on the podcast. You guys can go ahead and check it out. I had Jokic here and Giannis directly below him. It's marginal. It's very, very close who the best player is. But Giannis he's up there, like very, very close to being the best player. And the thing that separates Giannis from Jokic on the offensive side of the ball is Jokic is a far better passer. And even then, that's giving a lot of credit to Jokic because Giannis is a very good passer in his own right. Like, he's grown into that facilitator and that point forward kind of role. And he's also a fantastic playmaker. He's just not as good of a playmaker as Jokic. But that being said, averaging almost 7 assists as a power forward, and his assists have only increased as the years continued most of the time. It's roughly between 6 and 5. Like, those are some very good stats for someone that isn't really seen as that much of a playmaker. And on top of that, you could argue that Giannis is just as consistent as Jokic, the only difference being his three-point percentage not being as consistent. But Giannis was the first player in NBA history to average 30 points while shooting 61% from the field while accumulating 11 rebounds along with 6+ assists as well. And that's an accomplishment in of itself that rarely gets talked about. And the big separator and the reason why I think Giannis has the potential of being better than Jokic is because of Giannis's defense. Like, while Jokic has the positive on the offense, and even then, it's a very small positive because the only thing that Jokic is legitimately even better at than Giannis is three-point shooting and passing the ball. And even then, Giannis has proven he doesn't need three-point shooting to be effective because he's been averaging more points than Nikola Jokic, despite not taking as many three-pointers. And he's more efficient from inside the arc than Jokic is, even though Jokic is incredibly efficient in there as well. But defense, Giannis completely clears Jokic on that end in every single category. Giannis can rotate. Giannis can guard the 1 through the 5. He can guard the 5 exceptionally well. He has a Defensive Player of the Year award to prove that. And he's just an overall better, more competent defender than Jokic is. And that's really the separator between the two, aside from all the MVPs that Jokic has, which is why I think it's very marginal, Giannis's case of being better than Jokic. It's really, really, really close. But Jokic is better than Giannis by, the tiniest thread. It is very close. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of that. I spent a lot of time on that because it's I really want Giannis to be the best player in the NBA. I'm a big fan of Giannis. But I do have so much respect for Jokic. It's very, very close. Next player that they have on this list is Luka Doncic, and I'm a little bit skeptical of Luka Doncic, being this high. He always ranks really high in these picks for a lot of these lists. He always ranks number 1 for being the favorite in MVPs until Jokic comes in and completely steals it. I'm not sure if I have a problem with him at being number 3, though. I think being at number 3 is rather solid, especially given his finals appearance in the NBA recently and how he performed in the finals as well. I think he's somewhat earned that spot given everything that's happened and how the season unfolded for him. He did have a little bit of help from Kyrie Irving, however, but that's besides the point because Kyrie didn't really play well in the finals. Meanwhile, Luka Doncic played outstanding in the finals. Well, not really outstanding, but he played great in the finals. That's the right word for it. So, not a really big problem with that. I do think that Luka Doncic is better than SGA, despite SGA being ranked a little bit higher in terms of MVP ballots and MVP votes, because he was second in the running when Luka was third. So I don't really have a problem with him being here, especially given the fact that the Thunder ended up losing to Luka Doncic in the postseason. Now, it wasn't SGA's fault. It was more so the team's fault, which is why SGA is ranked at number 4th, according to to CBS. And I don't really have a problem with SGA being ranked 4th. Again, he's a fantastic point guard, arguably a top 3 point guard in the NBA right now. And really, the only other players that legitimately have arguments are Luka Doncic being better than him and Steph Curry, who's going to come a little bit later in this list. Spoiler alert. But he's not next on this list. For some reason, Joel Embiid is next on this list, which I completely disagree. Joel Embiid didn't play all that much last season. He barely played as many games as he should have played. He did play in the postseason, however, but then again, the postseason was full of disappointment, as it usually is. And I just can't have Joel Embiid, someone who only played 39 games last season, be so high and be in the top 5. I don't agree with this being in the top 5 at all. I don't care whether he's a fantastic player. He could be a top 2 player when he's healthy. Sure, he wasn't healthy last season. He shouldn't be on this top 5 list. Should not be anywhere near it. He should be below Steph. He should be below LeBron. He should be below Jason Tatum. All of those players, he should be below. Simply because of the not being available for the team. That is a part of being a good player. I'm sorry, you have to be available for your team. Your best ability is your availability, and I will scream it to the mountaintops with this. I do not agree with Joel Embiid being ranked this high. He should be ranked 8th at the very, very most. He should be ranked 8th. And just given off of last season, if he would have played 60 plus games last season, maybe even if he would have played 70 plus games, I'd have no problem with this. But the fact that he's played only 30 and he gets on this list, no, he shouldn't be in the top 5. Next player on this list is Steph Curry. And personally, I think Steph Curry should be right below SGA on this list, simply because Steph Curry, he didn't have a lot of help from last season. And a lot of that had to do with Klay Thompson not really playing as well as he normally plays, and Steph Curry not being used to the help that he usually gets. I wouldn't have a problem in putting him over Joel Embiid on this list, and I really think that he should be in the top 5, somewhere in the top 5, not just because of how he played in the NBA, but also what he's shown us in the Olympics, stepping up in the moments when Team USA desperately needed him to. When Team USA needed to get a bucket and when Team USA needed a basket, they gave it to 2 people, and Steph Curry was one of them. And he needs to be upheld with that respect. And I know that it's not NBA basketball. Doesn't matter to me. It is still basketball. And what I saw in those Olympics from Steph is enough to put him in the top 5, or at least over Joel Embiid on this list. Because the next player that that CBS put on this list is Jason Tatum. Now, I have no problem with Jason Tatum being in the top 10 whatsoever. None. He won the NBA Finals. He was arguably the first or the second best option for the team. And, during the postseason, you could argue that he was only the second best because he didn't really win that many awards. He didn't win the Eastern Conference Finals MVP or the Finals MVP. He still won the championship, though, and he still was a very important contributor to their team, regardless of how you feel about Jason Tatum and the regular season as a whole. Now, Now he does get a little bit of a knock at the fact that he was benched a couple of times. That you could argue that was a Steve Kerr problem than a Jason Tatum problem. And you could argue that maybe he wasn't even the best player on the team, but still he did win the championship for the Golden State. I'm so used to Golden State winning championships, I apologize. The Boston Celtics winning the championship. And I think that in and of itself demands respect, but maybe not seventh. I'm not entirely sure where I would put each of these players yet, but I do think that Jason Tatum does deserve to be over Joel Embiid, not just because of the fact that Jason Tatum won the championship recently, but every single year in the postseason, Jason Tatum and his team always, and I mean always, beats the 76ers, and they always beat Joel Embiid. And I mean, you could make the argument that it's because Jason Tatum has a much better team than the 76ers, but still, Jason Tatum's play has a lot of part into that, along with Joel Embiid's play in the postseason that plays a role into that. So, again, arguments can be made. This next player, however, definitely should be higher on this list, and that is LeBron James. It doesn't matter what any of you guys think about LeBron. He is a top 5 player, which is why I think he should be in the same conversation with Steph Curry being over Joel Embiid, especially given what happened these Olympics. The best players in the entire NBA on Team USA, some of the best players ever assembled in the NBA, one of the best teams ever assembled in the NBA, the Avengers, they called themselves. They gave the ball to one man to close the game every single time, and that man was a almost 40-year-old LeBron James, and he deserves all that respect. Look, the postseason, sure, you can make an argument that he didn't really play as good as you expect a LeBron to play. But you could also make the argument that Jamal Murray and Jokic just hit the most ridiculous shots against the Lakers. You can see it in the shooting percentages. The Nuggets shoot far better against the Lakers than they do against any other team. And again, you can make the argument that he shouldn't be that high because he lost in the first round. However, I do think that the Olympics should be taken into account, especially the importance of performance in the games that he's played. He's hit game winner and hit clutch shot after clutch shot. He's still proven that on a team full of the best players, he reigns supreme. He has proven that through the Olympics. So because of that, I think that CBS should have changed the rankings to LeBron at 5, Steph Curry at 6, Jason Tatum at 7, and then Joel Embiid should have been right here. Joel Embiid should have taken this spot. I know that's going to ruffle a lot of your feathers, but guess what? That's my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Next player on this list is the one and only Slim Reaper, Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant, he is a top 10 player. He definitely deserves to be on this list. He's a little bit lower because of the fact that he got swept recently in the postseason to Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I totally understand why he needs to get a dock on his ranking for that. Not to mention, I feel like he somewhat lost a step in the postseason. I don't know what it is, but it's like his postseason success is very, very bad ever since he left Golden State. And I think putting him at 9 and in the lower part of the top 10 is all right. Given what he's able to do for a team and given what he does and what he has done given his career. He did play very well in the Olympics, and he was a very key piece in terms of scoring and hitting important shots and hitting daggers as well, yes. But again, getting swept in the first round, it's never a good look. And then you can make the argument, Steph Curry didn't even make the playoffs. But then again, Klay Thompson went 0 for 10 in that elimination game. I don't really expect anyone to make the playoffs if you're going 0 for 10 as the second option. You're just hurting your team. And as much as I really like to defend Klay Thompson, I'm not going to be delusional and say he didn't have his faults during some parts of the season. It's that simple. And then the next player on this list is Anthony Edwards. Now, I really don't understand why Anthony Edwards is already in a top 10 list. given the fact that he didn't really play well in the final round of the postseason, not to mention that he didn't really play well in the elimination game against Denver. He got a lot of hype for sweeping the Phoenix Suns and making it farther into the postseason than anybody ever expected, but it's not like he really played well, you know? So if there was anyone else that I don't even think Anthony Edwards should be on this list entirely. If there was anyone that should be in the 10th spot, I'd give it to someone like maybe, Anthony flies in my way. I'd give it to someone like maybe Anthony Davis, who played very, very well for the Olympics. Yes, Anthony Edwards did play well for the Olympics as well, but you could argue that Anthony Davis's numbers were sort of boosted with the rebounds and the blocking. His blocking was phenomenal, not to mention his scoring. He was able to fill in the role that he needed to and actually outplay Joel Embiid in several games with Team USA. And again, there's a lot of arguments to be made. Anthony Davis, I actually don't have a problem if you don't want Anthony Davis in the top 10, just not Anthony Edwards. Like, you could Jaylen Brown. What about Jaylen Brown in the top 10? He just won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP and the Finals MVP. Give it to him. Not to mention the championship that he won. Like, Finals MVP, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, you had to have been the best player in those two crucial series in order to even get the award. So I'd have no problem with Jaylen Brown being in the top 10. I definitely think he's earned it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of that. And there's several other players that could be a part of this list as well. You can even Kawhi should be. You could argue Kawhi should be on this list, even though he was injured in the postseason. And everybody knows, postseason, Kawhi is a demon. You could argue that Kawhi should be in the top 10. You could also argue maybe somebody like Paul George could be in the top 10. Maybe even Sabonis, who is a very, very underrated power forward in the NBA, might I add. Anybody that isn't Anthony Edwards, I don't agree with Anthony Edwards being in the top 10 whatsoever. And I wouldn't mind pushing a Jaylen Brown in the top 10, literally because of the awards that he won in the postseason, proving to everybody that not only does he deserve the contract that he was given, but that he can perform. Anthony Edwards did not perform. Jaylen Brown did. And that's really the big difference. Not to mention, I feel like Jaylen Brown is a much more competent defender than Anthony Edwards, while also still having a similar skill set and moves, not really a move set, but a similar skill set to Anthony Edwards as well. Not to mention, he hit one of the most important shots in the entire series against the Pacers, and they ended up winning in overtime. That's clutch right there. And he should get recognized for it. He's obviously, and it's unfortunate because I feel like Jaylen Brown is going to be remembered as one of the worst Finals MVPs in recent history, which just is unfortunate in of itself, because it's in my opinion, the worst Finals MVP in the history of basketball is Andre Iguodala. It's that simple. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of that. But Jaylen Brown is far from the worst Finals MVP, and he definitely deserves some respect going into this season, especially given how he played. Again, you can argue that the team was stacked and it was very good, so of course he was going to play that well. But he won the hardware to prove it. He has hardware under his resume now. He should be in the top 10 given that he did it recently. Am I turning into a Celtics fan? No, I'm not. But put some respect on these players. Let me know in the comments exactly what you guys think. If you guys think that Jaylen Brown should be on this list. Maybe you guys think he shouldn't be on this list and I'm being utterly insane. But again, we'll figure out exactly what you guys have to say about that in the comments. But with that out of the way, we're actually going to go into a break and go into the fourth segment where I talk about NBA players that have the most to prove going into this season. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.